Have you ever felt that sickening when that moment when the monster, the architect of your chaos, suddenly softens their voice, lowers their gaze, and murmurs the word, sorry? For a split second, your entire reality tilts. You think, this is it. They finally see me. They finally feel remorse. It is the most calculated, most dangerous psychological trap the narcissist deploys. It's the sound of the chains being reforged, disguised as a key to freedom. This isn't a moment of vulnerability. It's a cold, pre-planned tactical strike designed to reset the game and tighten their grip. Welcome back to the arena. Today, we are performing an autopsy on the narcissistic apology. We are dissecting the words, the tone, and the timing to expose the hidden, toxic payload contained within. They want you to believe that their temporary verbal concession is a sign of profound, internal change. But we are going to use X-ray vision to show you that the apology is never about you or the truth. It is always, without exception, a weapon, a maneuver, and a mechanism for immediate, high-grade supply extraction. You are not receiving closure. You are receiving an emotional ransom note. The big, haunting question we must confront is this. If a narcissist possesses no true empathy and cannot genuinely access remorse, what dark, calculating function does their apology serve? The answer is control. They apologize only when their control grid is compromised, when they fear exposure, when they sense you pulling away, or when their primary supply lines are running dry. The "I'm sorry" is merely the emergency maintenance crew, dispatched to prevent the complete structural collapse of their delusion. It is a transactional exchange, not an emotional one. Think of the narcissistic apology as a psychological smoke grenade. They throw it out, creating a cloud of confusion, false sentiment, and cognitive dissonance. While you are momentarily blinded by the smoke, searching for the genuine heart they claim to have exposed, they are silently repositioning their defenses and reloading their attack weapons. The primary goal is distraction. They want you focused on the act of saying sorry, rather than the complete lack of amendment that follows. The apology is the end of the argument, not the beginning of the fix. This toxic cycle relies on your deep-seated human need for justice and validation. You crave the simple acknowledgement, I hurt you, and it was my fault. The narcissist knows this craving better than you do. They leverage it like a sniper. They feed you a highly diluted, contaminated version of the apology, enough to hook your hope, but never enough to actually be meaningful. The counterfeit apology exists solely to make you doubt your departure and reinvest in their performance. It's an illusion of accountability, a mirage of morality. Let's talk about the specific syntax of the toxic apology. It never contains full accountability. Listen for the but. I'm sorry I yelled, but you made me angry. I'm sorry for the mess, but you never helped. The but is the psychological signature of their disorder. It negates the apology, shifts the blame, and forces you back into the position of the offender. It is a verbal boomerang, thrown with the intent of striking you in the back of the head just as you turn to walk away. The intensity of their apologetic performance is directly proportional to the size of the supply they need to secure. If they fear you are about to expose a major transgression, the tears will be instant, the performance Oscar-worthy, and the promises impossibly grand. They are not feeling guilt. They are feeling panic over potential loss. They are enacting damage control protocol, using extreme emotional theater to silence the victim and rally the flying monkeys back to their defense. This mechanism is especially cruel in your later years, as they exploit the survivor's fatigue. They know you are tired of the war. They know you desperately want peace. The apology promises peace, but delivers only a ceasefire under their terms, where you pay for the silence by sacrificing your boundaries. They are leveraging your desire for stillness against your sanity. Do not mistake exhaustion for reconciliation. The war is over only when you walk off the battlefield. The most chilling realization is that the narcissist is not apologizing to you. They are apologizing to the audience they perceive in their own mind, the internalized judge that criticizes their flawlessness. The apology is a form of self-regulation, a quick fix to restore their own image of themselves as a good person who just made a mistake. You are simply the sounding board, the necessary prop in their internal drama of self-deception. Your pain is irrelevant. Their temporary comfort is paramount. The narcissistic apology is the ultimate proof that they see human connection not as a bond, but as a system. When the system breaks, They hit the reboot button, which is the apology. It's designed to wipe the hard drive clean of all past transgressions, forcing you to start the relationship from day one, ignoring the historical record of abuse. Today, we are going to reveal the malware behind the reboot sequence and ensure you never fall for the system crash again. To peer into the narcissist's mind during the apology, we must invoke the concept of emotional cartography. Their inner landscape is barren, defined by an insatiable need for external validation. The apology is not born of a heart capable of genuine remorse, but from a calculated assessment of the quickest route back to power. It is pure, surgical expediency. The words themselves are just tools, like a shovel used to dig up the buried corpse of the relationship for one last, desperate attempt at reanimation. We call this the hoovering protocol phase 1. The verbal apology is the initial sonic wave used to break down the victim's resolve. The goal is to induce a state of cognitive evasion, where the victim's pain is temporarily forgotten in the face of the offered truce. This is not reform. This is reconnaissance. They are probing your boundaries to see which ones are weakest, testing the structural integrity of your no-contact decision. They apologize to get access. Nothing more. Unpacking the shame mitigation strategy. True remorse requires acknowledging fault, which invites shame. Narcissists are pathologically incapable of holding shame. Their fragile ego cannot integrate such information. Therefore, the apology must serve to mitigate shame, not express it. They apologize for the consequence of their actions, the fact that you left, not the moral content of the actions themselves. The shame is circumvented, the ego preserved, and the lie continues. The apology is often a prelude to the recalibration gambit. They apologize for one small, easily defensible issue, e.g., "I'm sorry I was late," hoping that this minor concession will grant them immunity for all the major, unforgivable abuses, the infidelity, the financial sabotage, the sustained emotional cruelty. They are offering you a penny as payment for $1 million debt. Do not let them substitute a trivial admission for actual accountability. Understand the narcissist's profound fear of the truth teller. When you leave, you become a living threat to their public image. If you speak your truth, their entire facade crumbles. The apology is an attempt to buy your silence, a psychological non-disclosure agreement. They offer comfort and promise change in exchange for your agreement to bury the abuse history. They are not asking for forgiveness. They are demanding confidentiality. Let's look at the circular logic of absolution. The narcissist believes that by uttering the words sorry, they are instantly and totally cleansed of all wrongdoing, past, present, and future. For them, the apology is not the start of corrective action. It is the end of the punishment. They believe they have paid the psychological toll, and now they are owed immediate reward, usually in the form of validation, intimacy, or reinstatement of control. The intensity of their delivery, the tears, the trembling voice, the promises of therapy, is not genuine feeling, but a highly effective, learned performance called emotional mimicry. They are mirroring the emotional response they know a genuinely remorseful person would display. They are excellent actors, studying the reactions of others to simulate human connection. You are witnessing a flawless, yet utterly empty, simulation of a soul. The signal is strong, but the source is null. The toxic apology activates your internal rescuer archetype. They make themselves seem small, helpless, and desperately in need of your forgiveness to survive. This triggers your deepest, most compassionate instinct to heal and save. This is a deliberate manipulation. They make themselves appear dependent when, in reality, they are seeking to make you dependent on their emotional chaos again. Your strength is used as a lever to bring you back down. We must talk about the future favor clause. Every narcissistic apology comes with an invisible, non-negotiable contract attached. I apologize now, which means you owe me unlimited patience, belief, and servitude later. They bank the emotional capital of the apology to withdraw it later during the inevitable next abuse cycle, using it as an excuse. I already apologize for this. Why are you still bringing it up? The apology is a down payment on future cruelty. The final psychological nail in the coffin of the apology is the realization that they are incapable of recognizing the specific damage. They apologize generally, "I'm sorry things were hard," because they can't grasp the specific pain they inflicted. Their apology is a generalization, a blanket statement to cover all sins. If they cannot name the harm, they cannot change the behavior. The vagueness of the apology is proof of the permanence of the pathology. The dramatic turning point occurs when the apology lands, but the expected emotional resonance is absent. Instead of hope, you feel a cold, flat recognition. This is a script I have heard before. You stop consuming the words as truth and start analyzing them as raw data, a predictable tactic. The power shifts in that instant because you move from being the audience to being the director of the film. You know the ending, and it's not the one they promised. This is the moment you gain forensic insight. You start cataloging the elements of the apology, the rapid-fire succession of topics, the deflection of specific events, the tears that dry too quickly. You recognize the apology as a staged event, a high-stakes scene in a failing play. This scientific detachment allows you to separate the manipulative performance from the emotional response you were conditioned to feel. You are now the psychological observer, not the emotional participant. You discover the principle of behavioral noncompliance. The turning point is marked not by what you say, but what you do not do. You do not hug them. You do not stop the no-contact rule. You do not suspend the divorce proceedings. You treat the apology not as a valid currency, but as counterfeit money. You file it away as evidence of their continued manipulation, refusing to trade your precious peace for their worthless promise. This resistance triggers the narcissistic injury reflex. When the apology, their most powerful tool of manipulation, fails to work, their carefully constructed self-image shatters. They expected instant submission and adoration. Instead, they met a wall of cold indifference. This is the unexpected consequence. The moment their control fails, and their desperation begins to show, their polite mask melts away, revealing the furious child beneath. The shift is so dramatic because you stopped treating their words as emotional input and started treating them as noise. You became emotionally bulletproof. The sound of "I'm sorry" no longer penetrated your defenses. It simply bounced off your newly established boundaries. This inability to wound you with their most sentimental weapon is the most profound loss of power they will ever experience. They realize the leash is gone, and the dog is free. You begin to anticipate the post-apology devaluation. You know that because you didn't buy the lie, the pendulum will swing violently back to contempt. The tears will turn to rage. The sweetness will become vicious sarcasm. This predictability is your final layer of armor. You are no longer surprised by their pivot, because you understand that the apology was only a tool. When the tool fails, they discard it and grab the next one. Anger. This period reveals the false bottom of the barrel. They pull out every sentimental trick, mentioning old memories, referring to your children, feigning illness, to induce guilt. You realize they have reached the bottom of their emotional repertoire, and still, there is nothing genuine there. You see the sheer emptiness of their core. Their desperation confirms your strength. You were right to leave, and they are incapable of surviving on their own merit. The dramatic turning point is solidified by the evidence of history. You stack the previous empty apologies on top of this one. You see a pattern, not a mistake. The realization that this apology is identical in structure and outcome to the 5 apologies that preceded it provides undeniable, forensic evidence of the pathology's permanence. The data proves the diagnosis. The word sorry is just a repetitive system failure message. You finally recognize that the narcissist's apology is a form of emotional blackmail. They are holding their own dignity hostage, making their self-worth dependent on your forgiveness. If you don't forgive me, I can't be well, and that will be your fault. By refusing to participate, you refuse the psychological debt they are trying to impose. You are not responsible for their mental health. You are responsible only for your own liberation. The final psychological plot twist is the understanding that you are the only one who can apologize to yourself. You apologize for betraying your own intuition, for accepting the toxic substitute for love, and for enduring the lie. This act of self-reconciliation is the real closure. It closes the door on the past, makes you whole, and renders the narcissist's false offer utterly obsolete. You stepped out of their nightmare and into your sovereign reality. Now, observe the collapse and the devastating consequences of their failed gambit. When the apology does not successfully reel you back in, the narcissist experiences ego compression. Their grandiose self-image is violently squeezed, and the resulting pressure manifests as bitter, uncontrollable rage, aimed indiscriminately at anyone within range. They look frayed, cheap, and visibly toxic, having exhausted their charm resources on the failed operation. The immediate consequence of the failed apology is a rapid shift to vindictive devaluation. Because you refuse to participate in their emotional theater, they must punish you. They will immediately devalue your worth, not just in private, but publicly to the flying monkeys. I tried to apologize, but they are too bitter, crazy, or unstable to accept it. The failure of the manipulation is instantly reframed as proof of your emotional defectiveness. You witness the toxic supply cascade. Their need for validation is so severe that they must seek a replacement apology immediately. They will apologize to the next person they encounter, a new partner, a child, or even a complete stranger, to receive the instantaneous, shallow validation they desperately need. This constant, frantic search exposes the sheer emptiness of their character. They apologize not to connect, but to consume. The social disintegration accelerates in the aftermath. Their failed apology is actually a moment of self-betrayal to their audience. The flying monkeys, seeing the sheer desperation and the immediate flip to anger, start to question the narrative. They realize the narcissist is an emotional vacuum cleaner, sucking the life out of everyone. Their court of admirers shrinks, leaving them exposed and increasingly isolated in their own bitterness. The consequence for the survivor who refused the bait is profound empowerment. By rejecting the toxic apology, you preserved your moral capital. You retained the truth and integrity of your experience. You didn't trade your reality for a momentary, fraudulent truce. Your refusal is an act of self-respect that burns down the bridge to the past, ensuring that you can never be recycled on those terms again. You see the pathology of repetition in painful clarity. Within days, or even hours, they repeat the very transgression they apologize for. This immediate recurrence proves that the words meant nothing. The apology was a psychological reset button, not a course correction. Their inability to sustain change reveals the rigidity of their disorder and the fundamental impossibility of a genuine relational shift. The narcissist suffers from the consequence of the closed loop. They are trapped in a self-reinforcing cycle of abuse, false apology, and repetition. They are incapable of learning from the past because true learning requires introspection, which they cannot afford. They will live out the same pathetic script, with different actors, until the end of their days. You, however, broke the loop. You stepped out of their movie and wrote your own sequel. The emotional consequence for the narcissist is the empty echo. They stand alone, their manipulative words echoing back to them in the silence of their increasing isolation. They are constantly talking, but no one is truly listening anymore. They live in a desolate landscape of their own making, where their grandiosity is met with skepticism and their tears are viewed as performance art. Their life becomes a hollow echo chamber. The most brutal consequence is the loss of future supply options. Every failed apology, every desperate hoover, every public flip-flop reduces their appeal and limits their pool of intelligent, high-value targets. They are forced to scrape the bottom of the barrel for increasingly damaged or naive supply. Your departure and subsequent health have permanently raised the cost of doing business with them. Your final, most satisfying task in this collapse phase is to deliver emotional invisibility. Make their entire existence irrelevant to yours. Do not check. Do not observe. Do not care. The only true consequence for a narcissist is when their actions have no emotional effect on their former source. Your silence is the loudest, most damning judgment they will ever receive. Here is the final, undeniable truth you aim in your healed years. The narcissistic apology is the sound of a closing door, not an opening one. It is the final confirmation that you are dealing with a psychological dead end. You are not waiting for change. You are waiting for the final, dignified moment to walk away from the inevitable repetition of the abuse. Embrace the tyranny of evidence. Do not listen to the siren's song of their words. Judge only by the irrefutable evidence of their behavior over time. The evidence shows a pattern of abuse, followed by a theatrical pause, the apology, followed immediately by the return to abuse. That pattern is the only truth that matters. The apology is merely the pause button on the VCR of cruelty. The ultimate act of healing is the unburdening of hope. You must completely divest yourself of the desperate, toxic hope that they will ever become the person they pretended to be. That hope was a spiritual anchor that kept you tied to the shipwreck. Cutting that line is the final, exhilarating act of self-rescue. It will not change. Accept this blunt, final truth and be free. You achieve sovereignty of the self. By recognizing that their apologies are hollow, you reclaim your emotional sovereignty. You are no longer dependent on their validation or their acknowledgement of your pain. Your pain is real because you say it is. Your reality is valid because you live it. Their opinion, their words, and their pathetic attempts at reconciliation are now just dust. The apology detoxification must be total. Purge the memory of every false "I'm sorry" from your system. Those words were poison. Replace them with the unwavering mantra, "My peace is non-negotiable," and their word is meaningless. This firm, internal boundary is the fortress they can never breach. Your journey proves that true courage is not in confronting the monster, but in realizing the monster cannot be saved, and choosing to save yourself instead. The most profound apology you will ever receive is the quiet apology you give to the child within you, promising to never again abandon your own instincts for the sake of another's lie. When they inevitably try one last time, perhaps years down the line, remember this. The apology is the oldest trick in the book. Treat it as the final, desperate lunge of a drowning creature. Do not extend a hand. Simply observe the truth of their permanent failure from the safety of your newly built shore. The narcissist's apology is a promise written in disappearing ink. Your healing is a monument carved in stone. One fades instantly, the other endures forever, visible to all who seek truth. You chose the monument. Look at your life now. Look at the comfort, the silence, the sheer uncomplicated joy of simple things. You chose to trust the evidence of your eyes, not the sound of their voice. You chose your future over their empty words. And you won. The final, quotable truth that closes this chapter is this. They apologize to control the narrative. You heal to control your life. Never let a counterfeit word compromise an authentic freedom.